Good afternoon, councillors, speakers and staff. It's 4:32, so I'll open the meeting. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we meet on this afternoon, the Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal people, and humbly pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Housekeeping for those that are present and in the chambers are all well aware of the exit strategy from the council chambers. Next item to mention is the fact that this meeting has been live streamed, and what that means is when the public speakers or any councillor or staff have any comments or any input to put into the meeting, it is live streamed, and you need to be aware of that and careful of that, because there are ramifications in regards to derogatory comments or comments that may not be appropriate. So please keep that in mind, everyone. The next item on the agenda that we come to is public forum. And we do have some speakers in public forum today in regard to an item for modification consent of operating hours. So we'll go to the speakers first, and I'll ask Gary Silvestro to speak on behalf of the motion, please. Speakers, you get 5 minutes, and if you get to the 4-minute stage, I'll give you a little reminder that you're there, and we'll go from there. Over to you, Gary.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me clearly?
We can.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor and Councillor, just for giving me the opportunity to speak. And I'm speaking in favour of the recommendation in this report. And I'm here on behalf of my clients and local business operators, Apollo Fabrications. As noted in the report, it indicates that the assessment's been made of the proposal, and there's plenty of merit for the DA condition to be amended, and it's been recommended for approval at this meeting. And also know that there's been an objection to the proposal. Just my points in supporting this recommendation just include the following. So Apollo, they're continuing to improve, or they're continually seeking to improve their operations. And in doing this, a more detailed analysis of the operational activities at the steel manufacturing premises was undertaken following the recent DA approval, just to clearly identify and isolate those activities that require just continual management and time restrictions to control the impact, particularly noise from the premises, and also to identify those activities that could occur outside of the currently approved hours to help facilitate the efficient ongoing operation of that premises, whilst being conscious of the surrounding neighbourhood and any potential impacts. And breaking it down, those activities were clearly identified as both the blasting and painting activities, which are the noisiest activities there, and then also the loading, unloading, the delivery off-site, site maintenance, and also office administration activities. In supporting that, an acoustic report has informed this proposed amendment, which includes specific mitigation measures to ensure operational activities comply with legislated noise limits to protect the amenity of the local areas and specific sensitive receptors, dwellings and the like. The recommendations from that acoustic report are outlined in Council's report and are included as proposed amendments to the existing DA conditions. In response to the objection, Council afforded us the opportunity to seek further advice from our acoustic experts, and as summarised in our addendum letter that's included as part of Council's report. There's strong reassurance from the acoustic consultant that the proposed changes and mitigation measures recommended will ensure compliance with those noise regulations and assist in minimising impact on the local neighbourhood. So overall, Apollo's desire is to abate, mitigate and contain the noise that the facility generates. And in addressing this, Apollo's made genuine efforts in the operation and management of their fabrication facility, and also looking to the future as well to ensure that any future operations continually improve on their operation and their presence in the neighbourhood. So Apollo, they're committed to proactively working with council and the local community to ensure their ongoing operations will harmoniously coexist with other land use activities and continue to contribute positively to the growth of Young and district. And with that, I'm putting that forward in support of that recommendation. I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Gary. The next speaker I'll go to is Stephen Sherd, and Stephen speaking against the recommendation. Stephen.
Good afternoon, councillors. Won't take up much of your time. I'm absolutely dead against any extension of work hours over at Apollo. Soon as I've been subjected to the noise out of that place for 10 or 11 years. They keep assuring me that they were going to quieten their processes down. Yes, surely it's been quietened a little bit, but the track record says that these people cannot be trusted. And my big concern with any extension of hours, who would police it? All I keep getting told is to ring the town hall. And then the town hall has to follow it up. I mean, why do the regulations have to be broken? I mean, it's not something that's just gone on for a few weeks. This has gone on for years. And I don't want to see an extension to their hours one little bit. If anything, I would like to see their work hours reduced from 7 till 4, Monday to Friday, and no Saturdays. Because we've been out there on our place now for over 30 years and built it up, and we enjoy the place, but it makes it hard to enjoy it when it's spoiled on the weekends and of an evening with the constant noise.
But no acoustics.
Yeah, and as for the acoustic sound reports and things like that, I mean, to my knowledge, nobody came on our property and set up any gear to do it. They did a few years back. The current report, I don't know. I didn't see anyone there. I can get the decibel meter out when that shot blast is going and always get a reading, which I have sent in the previous letter to council. But anyway, I think that'll do me now. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck.
Thank you for that, Stephen. The next speaker we have against the motion is Tracy Lamb. Tracy.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Tracy Lamb and I live at 70 Telegraph Road. I'm against the proposed hours of extension for a number of key reasons, the same as Stephen. The noise the business makes in the shed, the noise of the trucks is easily heard during the day, let alone in the quiet hours of the early morning and at night at our residential area. We can clearly hear them from our place at all different times. I do understand that the business operates under current consent in the residential area. However, the business has not been compliant with the current operation hours for years, and it's only been very recently after council fined the business for consistent breaches that they have improved their compliance. I also understand that they challenged council in court but lost this appeal. Finally, as a personal note, I'm a mother of a 5-month-old baby and a 2-year-old, and I also work from home, and I'm quite concerned just about the mental impact it could possibly have on myself and my children. I just don't believe young kids to a residential area, and by what the long-term effect current noise will have on this business is, let alone extending the hours. Like, we just have to remember we are a residential area. I'm not the only one with kids in the area, and I am, just as a mum, I am concerned about the noise because I can clearly hear it, and I don't deserve my kids, who I'd like to grow up here for a long time, deserve that. Thank you again for the opportunity for me to voice my opinion, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to all speakers. When we get to the the business part of our meeting, I will bring that item forward and deal with it first to cap off the rank. The next item we have in front of us is a call for any apologies. Councillors, we got any apologies?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was recently advised by Councillor STADTMILLER's wife that he is unable to attend tonight due to illness and requests an apology.
Thank you. We have an apology from Councillor STADTMILLER. There's no other apologies. Okay, I'll ask that that apology be accepted. Moved Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is expressions of sympathy. I would ask everyone to be upstanding, please, and have a moment's silence for the following, please. Betty Power, Gwyneth Crowe, Margaret Wilson, Barbara Miller, Noreen Hearn, Peter Rand, Noel Maloney, Frederick Zims, Brian Alexander, Mark Gruber, Joyce James, Sylvia Cable, John Weston, Alan Storm, Jeanette Tiedemann, Ina Cummins, Norma Butler, Gavin Rendell, Janine Holness, Pamela Watson, John Hughes, Brian Shard, Lindsay Watson, Rochelle Jolliffe, Eric Cummins, Leonard Bush, Darryl Ridge, Colleen Sanderson, David Morris, Faye Ashley, Shirley Ridge, Gregory King, Leonie Butler, and also Les Cottrell and Dougal Walker. Thank you, everybody. Next item on the agenda, councillors, is the confirmation of our last minutes. Do I have a mover for those minutes? Moved Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Manchester. Thank you. There's no questions in regard to that. I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Brings me to item 7. Any disclosures of interest in regard to tonight's business paper? Councillor Flannery.
Mr. Mayor, the Galong Cemetery item 12.7.
And what sort of interest would that be, councillor?
It's non-pecuniary, but my mother is the applicant, I think, so I won't be voting on it and won't participate in the debate.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Tuckerman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, 12.6, I flag a declaration of interest and will not vote.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. Okay, there's no further disclosures of interest. Thank you. Item 8 is a mayoral minute. Councillors, you would have received the mayoral minute, and the reason for it being there is the bottom line on consultation and timing, when the funding application must be submitted by the 5th of March. That's the reason it's been brought forward in this format. I was made aware, without going through the report and reading it by staff, that the opportunity was there to apply for funding under the Building Better Regions Fund. Besides the restriction about the timeline of having an application in, any projects that were put forward have to be shovel ready within 12 weeks. So that restricted staff from opening up to a lot of different areas because just couldn't possibly be shovel ready in 12 weeks. Whereas the tenders are all out for these bridges, and staff believe that if we were successful in obtaining funding, that we could meet all the criteria. So the reports there, the recommendations there, councillors. Happy to move it as the mayor if I've got a seconder. Don't need a seconder for the mayoral minute, but I'll take one from Councillor Walker. Thank you. Happy for any question, councillors, now that in regard to the matter before it's put. Councillor Armstrong.
Just one question, through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager. If council is successful in gaining these funds, will that in any way have an adverse impact on grant funds that we've already been provided for these bridges?
The simple answer is no. Through you, Mr Mayor, the simple answer is no, Councillor Armstrong. This is, as we've stated, we are out to tender to market for fall. This is a precautionary measure to ensure that, given the passage of time on some of these bridge tenders / grants, we're just making sure and having the opportunity. Of course, we're not assured of grant funding in any case. Thank you.
Thank you for that. There's no further questions in regard to that matter. I'll put that recommendation. All those councillors in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, councillors. And we trust that a very competent application will go forward and we may be successful. So, thank you, staff, for that. The next item on the agenda is the calendar reports for myself and councillors. Councillors, my diary is listed there. There's a couple of little things I missed off. I had a dinner with our Australian Day Ambassador guests as well that I forgot to report in. And the other one that I'd like to just mention, grant me a couple of moments, is not listed there last night, is the community meeting that I called for the Hardin Murrumburra community in regard to the closure of the home. Very well attended. I think there's 155 odd people in attendance, I'm told. At any one time, there was 40 other people viewing online, watching it. And as of this afternoon, the video had recorded about 1,600 viewings. So it got out to the community, the wider community. I'd like to thank the councillors who made themselves available to be there and present, and our local state member, Steph Cook, who was there in person, and the Deputy Prime Minister, our federal member, Michael McCormick, made himself available via Zoom and didn't shirk the task at hand. Having pointed out it was a federal matter, he not only spoke to the community, he sat and took questions till the questions ceased. It's not something you see all that often, and I take my hat off to the gentleman for doing that. And it made the rest of the meeting run very smoothly because, as I assured the community at the start of the night, everyone would have their opportunity either to ask a question, pass comment, or give their thoughts on what may or may not happen. The night was a great success. It was all handled with the right attitude and the right mood, very pleasing, to the point where there was a meeting held after the general meeting with some interested bodies who may be interested in taking over the facility. As I said to everyone last night, there's a lot of talks going on behind the doors, quiet talks trying to achieve a great result for everyone. The one hold up at the moment is being able to communicate with Southern Cross. And to that point, I spoke to the Deputy Prime Minister this morning to get him to lean his weight to open that door. So the questions can be asked as in regard, the serious questions, is the facility for sale? If so, how much and what comes with it? So again, thank you to everyone who participated last night and helped me get through that. It was said to me that it was a pretty dangerous move calling that meeting, but I felt it needed to be done for the sake of the community and reassure the community that we're all feeling their pain. So thank you everyone for that. If there's any other matters on my diary that anyone would like to ask about or speak to, please do. If not, I'd ask that someone move that my diary be accepted. Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Seconded, Councillor Horton. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Takes me to councillors' reports. And some councillors have delivered their reports in the paper. I'll just go around in case I want to mention anything as we go. Councillor Armstrong.
Meetings as minuted there and also in the list. Omitted from that list is a meeting with the General Manager on Monday and last night's community meeting at Harden Murrumburra. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Horton, and I know there's a couple of variations to Councillor Horton's.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. The Jugeong meeting, which was to be held on the 16th, has been cancelled and is being held tonight, so naturally I won't make that one. The Galong meeting, which was scheduled for the 18th, is being held tomorrow night, and I will attend to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got a couple of alterations as well. The General Manager Performance Review meeting I didn't get to because the Harden Aged Care Committee meeting ran well over time, and life got in the road of the rates harmonisation briefing with grandchildren. And I did go to the meeting last night with the Harden residents re the aged care home. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have a couple more. Saturday the 20th, I actually went to the opening of the McLean Oval, which they're to be applauded for the work that they've done. And last night, I was chairing the AGM of the Young Museum Society. So unfortunately, I was unable to get to the community meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So now I'll go around the room. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The 29th of January, I met with the General Manager and also went to the meeting with you at Schools Instruction New South Wales and Create New South Wales. 26th of January, the Australia Day celebrations in Young. The 10th of February, the Councillor briefings. The 11th of February, the Asset Management Working Group meeting. The 15th, the General Manager's Performance Review. The 17th of February, the Rates Harmonisation Briefing. And a meeting yesterday with the General Manager and yourself. And
Thank you, Councillor Wallace, for that. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council meetings as minuted, but the 9th of February LEP review, 10th of February council briefing, 17th of February rates harmonisation, 20th of February McLean Oval opening, and what a wonderful facility that is, and congratulations to all those involved. And the 23rd of February, the community meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tuckerman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. 26th of January, attended the Australia Day celebration at Burrawa. 10th of February, councillor briefing. 15th of February, the GM performance review. 22nd of February, meeting with the Burrawa Business Chamber and a number of community members. Just in relation to that meeting, there was a number of concerns that have been raised, which staff have taken notes on, which I'm assuming will come across your desk at some stage, but would love to talk to you a little bit further about a couple of issues that were raised. One was the painting of the silos, and I think the community probably deserve to have a little bit more information around the issues around the silos. They're very keen, particularly having seen Harden's progress on painting of the silos, to look at what can be done at Burrawa. Also, there was a number of concerns raised in regards to a matter that was brought before Council Traffic Committee and had been to the last Council meeting, and that was in regards to the pedestrian crossing. A response in regards to a question that was asked by the Burrawa Business Chamber was that there was no funding available for what was recommended coming out of the Traffic Committee. I just think we probably need to consider the safety around pedestrians quite seriously, and I'm happy to talk to the General Manager offline in regards to ways we can try and get some
Probably
funding.
the best way to go about that, Councillor Tuckerman, given the content we're going to the diary. So those matters are probably better off dealt with offline with the General Manager.
Yeah, which is just, that's what I said. I'm just raising those issues with you now. 24th, today's meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. Councillor Walker.
Meetings as minted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Manchester.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The 25th and the 26th of January, Australia Day celebrations, and being the chaperone for Graham Ross, our Australia Day ambassador, for Harden and Murrumba and Wombat. The 28th, meeting with the General Manager. The 15th of February, the General GM's review. 22nd, the Greymont Liaison meeting at GALONG, and today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I have someone move that those reports be accepted, please? Moved, Councillor Armstrong. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Rolls. All those in favour? Thank you, Councillor. So be it. We go to anyone with a community recognition scheme. Has anyone got someone? Councillor Flannery's got someone he'd like to put up. Councillor.
Oh, look, it's been covered, but I do want to make the recognition in Council Kai Steele's work in putting together the application for the McLean Oval grant funding and then actually pulling off the project. His work and the work of his committee has just been outstanding, and I'd just like to recognise the effort he put in, and I think it typifies the community spirit in our community.
I'm pretty sure everyone in attendance would completely agree with you, Councillor Flannery. Thanks for that. And Deirdre, have you got the bulk of that? Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Councillor Flannery. That takes us to the next item, which is the General Manager's report. And as it is practice we had speakers in the public forum, I'll now bring item 2114, I believe it is, forward, which is on page 232. 232, thank you. Councillors, the item 1211-2114 is the modification to consent of operating hours. Councillors, I will be seeking council to defer this matter tonight. I've had concerns about some of the reports that go with this item. One in question is the acoustic report. And I asked staff some questions regarding the acoustic report and the environmental noise impact assessment report, as it's called, and asked had it been assessed by external specialists. The answer to that was no. While I'm assured that the council staff have the ability to have a look at these acoustic reports and interpret the information that's put in front of them, we do not have anyone in our organisation who can attribute to the accuracy of the data that's provided. So basically, you would be just believing on face value the data that is put in front of you. I have serious concerns in regard to that matter, as well as other concerns that came from the acoustic report, which was spoken by some of the speakers in regard to the community who live in that area of our town, and the hardship and how that noise impacts their lifestyle and their mental well-being. But I don't wish to go into that. But councillors, what I'm asking to do is defer, and I would like to put this motion in front of council. That council defer the determination of the application and engage a consultant to undertake a review of the Environmental Noise Impact Assessment Report number 6731/2.1. Council staff to engage an acoustic consultant to undertake an environmental noise impact assessment report based on the parameters of the development application. Point 3 is a further report be presented to council on the acoustic review and acoustic report. And item 4 is a further report be presented to council seeking determination of development application 2019/DA-000351. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Horton. Thank you very much, Councillor Horton. Are there any questions before I put that to Council? If not, Council, all those in favour? All those in favour? That
Rolls, River O'Connor, actually one.
everyone. Those against? Councillor Walker is against. Thank you. All councillors for except Councillor Walker. Thank you, Councillor. So that recommendation has been carried, and that's the end of that matter for the time being. So we go back to our agenda.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the public speakers will take you out of this meeting where you can speak, and you can come on and see online the debate through the website. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. General Manager. So that takes us back to the General Manager's report, item 12.1, which is the quarterly budget review, and I'll hand over to the General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, before you see the quarterly budget review, as discussed at the briefings, what you see before you is an extensive review of our capital program and some review of the operational program. This is part of the strategy to be able to moderate how much work we can actually do, particularly in the capital space, by moderating it and planning for it. So I give it to you.
Thank you for that. Councillors, the report's there and the recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Move Councillor Flannery, seconded Councillor Rolls. Thank you. Any questions before I put that, councillors? I've got Councillor Manchester got a question.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just there's a lot of grant works deferral here. Because they'll be deferred through now to 21-22 financial year, is there any implications with any of these grant monies with the timeline?
Through Mr. Mayor, I'll have the Director of Infrastructure answer that, as grants is in her area.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, when we looked at the deferral of the projects, one of the key things we looked at was the expiry of the grant fundings. So what we have deferred, we have ensured that we can still continue to deliver.
Thank you for that, Director. Councillor Armstrong had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in regard to the increase in our wages and materials bill as a result of deferral of those capital works, there's obviously an adverse impact on the bottom line in terms of our operating result. What steps will the General Manager put in place to attempt to rein in some of that operating deficit over the ensuing period?
Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We thought it was important first to address capital, to understand the balance between what has been happening in the capital space versus the operation space. We will be focusing on the very question you've asked as part of the March quarterly review. There has not been significant movement in staff. We've tried to recruit only where absolutely necessary. Some positions are still vacant. We are assessing those on a case-by-case basis, and that will form part of our ongoing review. And there will be more information as we continue to analyse the information and operational output. Also in consideration is that will also inform us of the service levels that are currently being reached and how the staffing levels is reaching that, or in the case through some questions being put to us, not being reached. So we need to look at that closely.
Thank you for that. There's no further question. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, this is a question not dissimilar to Councillor Manchester's. Where there were projects where they were completed under budget, what happens to those funds?
Councillor Wallace, could you just run through that again? It kept breaking up on us. I'm sorry.
Yes, we should have got the Deputy Prime Minister while he had him last night to work on the internet connection around the region. But anyway,
I'll mention it to him later.
I was just wondering that money that was left over from projects that were completed and were under budget, what happens to those monies? Did you get that one?
Yes, we did. They're looking for an answer for you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, when you talk about projects, if you're talking about major projects, I will again pass to the Director of Infrastructure.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the projects that have got savings, for example, the funding projects, if we do the project under budget, what we do assess is if we can spend the money elsewhere. An example of that would be the halls, the upgrade of the halls. We had expended some of the money and we realised that there was money left over. So we've actually included other halls. We speak to the funding agents and we say, this is the scope that we want to do, and we do that. If the funding source is from council's reserves, then we allocate that to other projects as required.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Okay, now the reports. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. So be it. There we are. Right up. 12.2, the delivery program half-yearly progress report. The councillors, they're in front of you, and the recommendation that we endorse the Hilltops Council delivery program half-yearly progress report for the period July to December 2020 for the provision to the Office of Local Government. I will have a mover and a second to start with.
Move the question.
Moved with Councillor Armstrong. Seconded Councillor Wallace. Thank you. Councillor Armstrong has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through the General Manager, in regard to the delivery program, I'm just a bit confused, or perhaps I can have some clarification, please. In the column titled Status Percentage Complete to December 2020, on the very first page, page number 38, we see that 50% of the 90% of all food shops to be inspected have been inspected. Is that effectively a measure of the number of food shops, or is that 50% a measure of chronology, in that it is 50% of the year elapsed, so we've reached 50% of it? So I'll then go on to the one below it, that companion animal complaints responded to within 1 week of receipt, depending upon severity. The 50% shown there, does that mean that 50% of our companion animal complaints have not been responded to within the 1 week, or does it simply mean that 50% of our complaints are expected in 6 months of the year? I guess if I go on through this, everyone will be cranky and because I'm banging on about it, but at this particular stage, all that's telling me is that we're 6 months through the year and not in terms of our performance goals, how we've performed according to those performance standards and the goals that we've set. Now, perhaps the General Manager can clarify that matter, and if I'm misunderstanding it, he may correct my misunderstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as the ones you've chosen relate to our Director of Planning, she will be able to clarify exactly your question, probably more articulate than I can because it's her area. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Those two examples presented tonight, we actually, in our team, we actually go against the operational plan key actions, but we use the measurable indicator as a minimum standard to what we are to perform at. So the 50% for us represents 1.1.1.1.1. So the actual operational plan key action. not the measurable indicator. That is just our standard that we have to maintain.
So just if I may, bear with me, Mr Mayor, just through you, Mr General Manager, then the 50% is effectively a measure of elapsed time rather than the measure of services provided. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the 50%, say for the food shops, would be that we have done more greater than 50% of inspections.
And in the case of the companion animal complaints?
It would mean that when we receive the complaints, well, I suppose that one there is that whenever we receive complaints, they would provide companion animal management services. So we, I suppose that is a tricky one I can see where you're coming at with that, and I suppose that's...
Through you, Mr Mayor. Part of the, as I've said, this DPOP was created some time ago. I think I mentioned at our last time that this came before councillors. Some of the questions that you're asking are the questions that we ourselves asked. These are the measures and indicators that were adopted at the time. So some are actual activities, some are elapsed of times, some are numbers of actual things, and some are not. So we'll continue to look for clarity, particularly when we work on the new IPR documentation that will form part of the new council post the elections. And certainly we will need to begin that process, particularly in the community strategic plan, when we go to the community for consultation.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor has got a question.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, would you mind explaining, General Manager, the difference in the colours? I know there's a chart here, but then there's no chart for grey. What does the grey mean? It's neither planning, infrastructure, corporate, or I can't see that last one, but it seems to have the different names in it. So I'm looking at page 53, where infrastructure planning, they're grey. What does that mean?
Just getting some clarification for you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Apologise, councillors. That's an anomaly where we've changed the wellbeing pillar, and not all colour coding was updated when we did that section. You'll see it reverts in the following section back to the colour coding. However, the department is correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tuckerman.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I think I'm sort of responding to some of the questions that Councillor Armstrong had, and I just want to probably reflect on the fact that this is a really important document. It's council's accounting for its stewardship, as it says in the prelude, for the community's long-term goals. It's just not a tick and flick exercise. It's a real living document, and I think we really need to pay some attention to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'm sure the relevant staff will take that on board, as I tend to agree with you. Any further questions? No? Okay, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Set unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 12.3, Summer Fund Program. There's a report there, councillors, and recommendations. Do I have a mover and a second to start us off with? Move, Councillor Manchester. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Horton. Thank you. Any questions in regard to that report, councillors, before I put that? No? Okay, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous, so be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 12.4, Cash and Investment Report. There's a report there, councillors, and the recommendation that we received the statement of cash and investments as of 31 January 2021. Have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved, Councillor Manchester. Thank you. Seconded, was it Councillor Wallace? I think. Yep, thank you. Any questions in regard to the report? Councillor Armstrong, question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question through the General Manager. Given tonight's deferral of capital works until next year and potentially future years, I guess that provides us with a little bit of an opportunity now in regards to placing some of these funds for a little bit longer and potentially improving the rather lacklustre performance of our investments in recent times. I'm just wondering if the General Manager can advise Council of the opportunities that might exist to improve these and what he's doing to maximise that opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'll pass on over to the Chief Financial Officer, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. At the current time, we're focusing on consolidating a number of those cash and managed funds accounts, being our transaction accounts, which are the low interest bearing accounts, predominantly given that these were the accounts of the former councils, and that they can become a single account. From there, we'll start to look at how we can move them into longer term investments.
Thank you for that. No other questions in regard to that report. I'll put that. All those in favour? Unanimous, so be it. Thank you, councillors. 12.5, outstanding rates and charges and sundry debtors report. There's a report there, Council, and the recommendation we receive and note the report.
I move the recommendation with a question, Mr. Mayor.
Moved, Councillor Horton with a question, seconded by Councillor Walker. Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Horton has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. To address this to the General Manager, what is very concerning to me is that 23% of the outstanding rates and other charges are more than 3 months overdue. That represents over $3 million, plus 73% of the water charges over 3 months, another $1 million, about $4 million, a little over. So my question is to our General Manager, have we been given figures to tell us how long over 3 months? Is it 3 months and 1 day, 3 months and 1 week, or is it 4 years or 5 years? And I'm very pleased that we've got somebody actioning the debt, private company to get onto the debt. But I'm concerned, how long are they? 5 years old? 3 months is good. If they're all 3 months, 3 months and 1 week, but who knows?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, we don't have that information within this report. However, the point you raise is a very important one. We actually now have engaged a debt recovery agent, which has not been done during my time until now. So, notwithstanding the age, we will be able to report back on the success of that engagement, potentially not because they won't be starting until the end of March. There are some conditions around debt recovery which we must consider. However, we will make that part of the report to give some further aging that you have requested as part of a future report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. General Manager. Through the Mayor, I have another concern regarding rates. The rates are due, according to this printout here, on the 28th of February. And according to my records at home, that's correct. It's this Sunday. But I haven't received a rate notice. The only one I received was a tax invoice issued on the 31st of August 2020 with the 4 quarterly payments, dates and amount. Now, I keep good records at home and I pay them on time. But a lot of people have to save. It's one of their biggest bills in the quarter. And if they're not given the notice to pay it in 3 or 4, maybe 5 weeks in advance, then they're not going to get paid. And some people think they're very smart, and because they don't get a bill, they don't pay it anyhow. Now, I'm just wondering if I'm the only one that hasn't received it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've had no indication that people haven't received their rates notice. I received my rates notice, but certainly I'll take that on notice and follow up. Has there been a glitch or some other something within the system that means that some people hasn't. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton, for that. And something else you just mentioned then, and it was mentioned to me before, that the final day being the 28th on a Sunday. I don't know if is that normal practice that we would have the closing date on a Sunday?
That's just a procedural type part, but if it falls on the weekend, it just falls to the next business day, which will be the Monday.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, Councillor Manchester has a question.
Yeah, just one quick one. Actually, Councillor Horton reminded me, and I just reached over and had a quick look to confirm I was right. On the rate, the rate instalment notice, the current one that was sent out, it's got in the body of it, the third instalment due, blah, blah. If not paid, the amount will attract a interest rate of 7% per annum. Further down, it's actually listed on the notice, 0% interest will be charged on each instalment or any part remaining outstanding after the due date. So I think there's a little bit of a correction to be done to the rate notice. Because there's two indications. One, that there's 7% charged, and then further down, it says in a green box that 0% interest will be charged on each instalment or any part that remains outstanding after due date.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we will check the format of the report. There was a period of time where there would be no interest charged because of the direction of the government that no interest could be charged. So we'll make sure that that's clarified on the document.
Yeah, it's definitely there. I've got the notice in front of me, and but it does say earlier up that it's 7%, and then further down it says 0%.
Thank you, Councillor, for bringing that to the attention. On that note, I'll put that report. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 12.6, the Local Government Amendment Rating Bill 2021 towards a fairer rating system submission. The councillors has the report there and a recommendation that goes with it to endorse responses below for submission to the Office of Local Government. We'll have a mover and a seconder to start with. Moved Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Rolls. Thank you. Do I have any questions in regard to that before I put that matter, councillors? That's a no. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Pretty sure that's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Against? No, it was unanimous. Thank you. I know, that's right. Councillor Tuckman had abstained from voting on that item. Councillor Flannery is taking no part in this item. Item 12.7, Friends of Galong Cemetery Agreement. Councillors, there's a report there and a recommendation there. Do I have a mover and a second? Moved Councillor O'Connor, I think it is, yep. Seconded Councillor Walker, thank you. Are there any questions or discussions about the matter? I've got some hands in the air. Whoa, hang hold. Councillor O'Connor.
I have a couple of queries. The first query is that on the report it says that staff estimate the cost to council to maintain the cemetery to its current standard would exceed the regular maintenance costs of $4,000. The group has asked for $6,000, which is probably what the cost of maintaining it is. So I don't understand why $4,000 has been put in the recommendation. So I guess I'm looking at, and I don't know the right term, I'm looking at foreshadowing a motion that increases that to $6,000, and also $12,000 has obviously already been expended in that time between 2016 and now, and I think it would only be fair to back pay what they've already spent out of their own pocket.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Manchester, I think, was second off the rank.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I totally agree with Councillor O'Connor on this one. I was going to move that an amount of $6,000 be looked at for future funding of this, the Friends of Galong, but that we also look at the back payment of the last 3 years to be refunded, as I mentioned at our workshop last week. I think it was the week before. when this letter was tabled. I think that they do an excellent job out there. A handful of people. It's got a lot of historical value. It's an immaculate cemetery. It's renowned, and there's no way in the world could council look after and maintain the cemetery to the standard that is kept at for anything like $5,000 or $6,000. No way in the world. And I think we should help this community group to help them to keep on maintaining that facility. Thanks, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Armstrong was next cab off the rank, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple of questions to the General Manager. I share Councillor Manchester's and also Councillor O'Connor's feelings in regards to the maintenance of the facility. Even though it appears as though it's not a council facility, it is a community facility in that it is used by the community. However, it's not the only historic cemetery that is maintained by village groups, and I speak specifically about the MURRINGO Community Association and the MURRINGO Cemetery. I'm aware that they hold regular working bees to also maintain the cemetery there entirely at their own cost. They are currently a committee of council, 355 committee of council, and what I'd like to do is move in supporting this recommendation, I'd like to move an amendment that included a similar arrangement for the MURRINGO Community Association and the MURRINGO Cemetery at the discretion of MCA to take up that particular offer. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a bit going on here at the moment. So we've got a recommendation that had a mover and a seconder. I've had a motion foreshadowed, which we don't deal with until we deal with the matter in front of us. And I've had an amendment to, I believe, the recommendation that's in front of us, or the recommendation that was foreshadowed, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, that's correct.
Your amendment to which? The current resolution or the foreshadowed one?
No, an amendment to the current resolution.
Thank you. Okay, so the recommendation that's in front of that we're dealing with, councillors, is that receive and note the report, endorse the agreement between Hilltops Council and Friends of GALONG Cemetery, and allocate $4,000 to the Friends of GALONG Cemetery in the 2020-2021 budget, and each year thereafter covered under the agreement.
Mr. Mayor, can I suggest, Mr. Mayor, that Councillor Armstrong includes the foreshadowed amount as an amendment that Councillor O'Connor was putting forward?
Yeah.
That's why I spoke to Councillor Armstrong and asked him if he wished to be part of the recommendation that is in front of us or the foreshadowed recommendation motion.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know. That may be a point of order on that, in that because it's foreshadowed, I can't amend something that hasn't been considered by council yet.
What I'm suggesting, Mr. Mayor, is that it doesn't have to be a foreshadowed motion. It could be an amendment.
I'm going to go back to the mover, Councillor O'Connor, and ask her, would you like to accept, first of all, Councillor Armstrong's amendment, the mover and seconder?
Yes, I have no problem with that, but I'd like to correct my previous assumption that it was a foreshadowed motion and just amend the current motion, the current recommendation.
You'd like to amend the current recommendation to read?
Allocate $6,000 to the Friends of GALONG Cemetery.
Yep.
Point D, back pay the sum of $12,000 for work already carried out from 2016.
Thank you, Council, for clarifying that for all. So I'm just going to get our penciler to put the amended recommendation up so we can all have a look at how it reads and what it reads, please.
Councillors, we're just about to put up the motion as we understand it, so please correct it as you see fit, particularly Councillor Armstrong, that last section. So you will see that C has gone from 4,000 to 6,000. D is the back payment, 12,000 to be refunded to the Galong or the Friends of the Galong Cemetery. And the last one is, I suppose, an allocation of $6,000 to be offered to the Murringo Association, the Murringo Cemetery, to be accepted at their discretion. Have we captured that, both Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, I'm happy with that, Mr. General Manager.
Can I just make a point? We don't know if $6,000 is what Murringo would be looking for, or whether they're looking for anything. Could we separate that? Could we have a report back to council about Murringo as opposed to putting it on with this one?
I'll go to back to my earlier comment in regard to the mover and the seconder being happy for the amendment to be added to the recommendation, and I believe the answer was yes then. Councillor Armstrong, you any commentary that you'd like to at this stage?
Mr. Mayor, I don't understand Councillor O'Connor's hesitance in including that. The Murringo Community Association is currently a Section 355 Committee of Council. So if the MCA were prepared to enter into such an arrangement, Council would still need to provide them with a delegation under Section 377, and that would need to be a resolution by Council. So this essentially is an offer that is cash backed. I don't have a problem with that, so I'm happy with the words that are displayed there now.
Sorry, I didn't understand what exactly what you meant, but I think that's fine. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, councillors. So the new recommendations there, I have a question from Councillor Walker.
Yes, I think I have a problem being a member of the original resolution, how that's strayed from the original resolution to include the Murringo Cemetery without some sort of report to council.
Thank you, councillor. Comments? Councillors, we have the recommendation that has been happy to be put there now, although
we can't accept B now because the second didn't accept it.
I'm just trying to concentrate fully. Councillor Walker was the seconder of the original recommendation, and he doesn't accept the amendment. I'm just going to seek advice where that leads me. My advice is that because the seconder doesn't accept the amendment, it can't be included in that recommendation, and it could be dealt with separately, presumably at the next meeting, with a report coming back to council in regard to that matter. So that takes me back to the amended recommendation, which the only change to it, the two changes to it would be from 4,000 to 6,000, and that council back pay $12,000.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as I understood, and I'll leave it, Councillor O'Connor, as the first mover, appeared to accept the consideration of Murringo. Councillor Walker, as I've heard it, does not accept a decision to be made without some consideration being brought back to council. So I think with the mover and the seconder would accept an E that brings back a report concerning Murringo. Is that as I understood, Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, I think I'd be happy with that. So D, that just bring back a report.
Councillor Walker, did I understand your comments in that regard?
That's exactly what I said, yes.
Okay, so Councillor Armstrong, it's now in your hands whether you put that to the mover and the seconder for a report to come back to next meeting. I don't think there's any problem coming back to next meeting for that consideration.
Mr. Mayor, I would think deferral of the matter until next council meeting would provide a more comprehensive report to come back to council. Fundamentally, I don't have any issues with Councillor O'Connor's intent, but I want to make sure that this opportunity is provided to all of those community groups that are maintaining cemeteries, not just one community group. So my preference would be that this be deferred and come back to council with a fuller report that details the maintenance costs at the MURRINGO Cemetery, council's cost, and that would give us some time to have further discussions or have discussions with MCA to gauge their interest in proceeding with something along these lines.
So Councillor Armstrong has just sought to defer the item 12.7, 21/10. Has he got need a seconder for that? He's got a seconder with Councillor Walker. So, I'm taking advice. Councillor Walker seconded the other recommendation. So something that started off basically pretty straightforward, councillors. It got pretty complicated. Bear with me, but I'm going to go to one more question to Councillor O'Connor, then I'm going to make some decisions. So, Councillor O'Connor.
Yes. Yes,
Councillor
Mr.
O'Connor?
Mayor. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I thought you had your hand up for a question. No?
Oh, I did.
Yep.
I did. Can we not put the original motion and then defer just bringing the report back to the next meeting with all the other community groups who have cemeteries? I mean, this motion has actually been brought to us. We don't know what the other groups would like or not like. And I think we could have a report on those, but this motion's in front of us. I can't see why we can't just take this motion as it is.
Well, unfortunately, we haven't got that motion in front of us really because there's been an amendment to it and then another amendment made to that as well. So I'm struggling now, and I'll have to get the operator on the pencil to explain to us what we just are going to vote on, because it's been moved from allocating 4,000 to 6,000 to back paying money to including MURRINGO to not including MURRINGO to seeking a report to seeking a deferment. Councillors, I'm just not too sure, and I will seek and speak to the General Managers in regard to what we're going to put up or what we're not going to put up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, hopefully I can assist. As I understand it through the discussion before us, the motion is receive and note the report, B, endorse the agreement between Hilltops and Friends of Galong. The motion as moved and agreed between the mover and the seconder was to change the original motion, which was allocate $4,000 to allocate $6,000. And again, with the agreement between the mover and the seconder to add D, back pay the sum of $12,000 for the work that had already been done. Then the discussion ensued about whether or not we would add MURRINGO in there. That was agreed to by the first mover and not the second. So that point could not be raised. I think the motion before you is, as I've articulated, A through to D, and the issue about the report for MURRINGO. Well, we can have a motion here tonight to bring a report to, or I can take a question on note, a question with notice from the Councillor Armstrong in the next coming days to bring a report back to council, so that the motion as it stands in relation to Galong Cemetery can be debated here tonight with you, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. So the recommendation reads, receive and note the report, .point B, endorse the agreement between Hilltops Council and Friends of Galong Cemetery. And .point C, allocate $6,000 to the Friends of Galong Cemetery in the 2020-2021 budget, and each year thereafter covered by the agreement. And .point D, back pay the Friends of Galong Cemetery the sum of $12,000. To have agreement with the mover and the seconder, but that's the recommendation that we're voting on.
Yes, with me, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre. Okay, take that away. Councillors, back up for me, please. Okay, councillors, I'm going to put that recommendation. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That's Carried. Against? Noted. Councillor Armstrong. Thank you, councillors. That's been resolved. It's been resolved, so I'm not going to say anything. It's been dealt with. Item 12.8. Hilltops LEP update, gateway determination, public exhibition and consultation. Councillors, there's a report there and our recommendations there. Have a move and a second to start with, please. Move, Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. Thank you. Do I have any questions? Councillor Flannery, good question. You got the sun in his eyes.
Mr. Mayor, I noted in the report that in relation to the Harden, I'm just going to get the correct. Council recommended option A, and the LEP committee recommended option C with regard to Harden East urban release area. So I seek to move an amendment to the report that option C be preferred option of council with regard to the Harden East area.
Councillor Flannery would be referring to page 108, .point C, .point 2, option A for the Harden East urban release area. And wants that amended to say option C. Is that correct, councillor?
Yes, correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much for that, just so everyone knows. So I had to move it.
Mr. Mayor,
Sorry, councillor?
That's a motion. That's not an amendment.
They're just moving the motion with that.
Moving the motion with that amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Horton is happy to have that way. Councillor, so that recommendation, does everyone understand the change to how that reads? That it would be option C, and that was the option that was spoke about at the LEP committee in regard to that parcel of land. I understand that the reasoning behind council staff putting option A there, as that was the one that was spoke through the New South Wales Gateway process, and staff were advised that that's how they look at it. When the LEP committee met, after extensive discussions, it was decided that the best option felt for the community would be option C, and I concur with Councillor Flannery's choice of going with option C. So that's the amendment that's been put there. So I'll put that to councillors. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Walker and Councillor Wallace were against.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make the point, and I know we voted on the motion, but it's a bit disappointing that when we have a subcommittee and they make a recommendation to go up before council.
Councillor Flannery, I understand your frustration, and I just tried to explain briefly how staff got to that understanding. And as I've just had to cut myself off because we voted on a matter, we don't discuss it after we've voted on it. So thank you. We'll move on to 12.9. Councillors, development application stats for December 2020.
I was for, Mr. Mayor. I was for the motion.
I'm sorry.
Hello?
I'm sorry. Yep, I've got you. Sorry, Councillor. Thank you. It came through a bit late. You're on a bit of a speed dial. I will have to talk to the Deputy Prime Minister. Could I have that reversed, please?
Thank you.
No, with John Walker. That's the Walker is against 12 point. Thank you. So we're back to 12.9. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillors, don't be shy. Councillor Armstrong, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Wallace, thank you. Any questions before I put that recommendation? Taking that as a no. Councillor Armstrong's got a question. Councillor Armstrong?
DA 2020/0122. I notice it's withdrawn. Can we just get some background as to why the applicant withdrew it, if the applicant provided any reasons for withdrawing?
Could you please repeat the DA number, Councillor Armstrong?
DA 2020/0122, lodged on the 24th of the 6th, 2020 by Malloy Super Proprietary Limited for 2 Rockdale Road, Young, for an 8 general industry units development.
Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Council staff are reporting the withdrawal as status as at the 31st of January. We are working with the applicant currently on that particular DA.
Thank you for that. Does that answer your question, Councillor Armstrong?
If it's withdrawn, I'm just, how can we be working with the councillor, with the applicant if the application is withdrawn, or is it, is this like a pre-DA arrangement, is it?
I'll hand over to the General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There's been some, I would say, difference of opinion and confusion through correspondence with the applicant. Staff had taken comments made within communication as a withdrawal. The applicant has now stated that may not have been the case. I cannot say conclusively. As at this stage, we believe it to have been withdrawn. So we're reporting it as withdrawn. However, we may have to amend that document to say that it's withdrawn if that's not what he actually intended. But we're in discussions with him in that. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions in regard to that item? Councillor O'Connor's got her hands full. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 12.10, the DA, the demolition of outbuildings and subdivision 2 lots and dwelling house at 63 MORRINGO Street, Young. Councillors, it's recommendation report that's moved by Councillor Horton, seconded by Councillor Walker. Thank you. Any questions in regard to this item, councillors, before I put that to us? That's a no. Okay, council, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 12.11, we've dealt with. Thank you. We go over to 12.12, page 289, which is the retrospective application for CARPORT. The report there, councillors, and a recommendation. Have a mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Rolls. Thank you. Any questions in regard to that report before I put it? That's a no. All those in favour? Against? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 12.13, road naming for 2 new roads in subdivision at Wickham Lane in Young. Councillors, once again, there's a recommendation there and a report. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Horton. Any questions in regard to that? Councillor Walker's got a question.
Yes, just point of clarification, if I may, about where these names come from. Is it coming out of the lucky dip bucket that's in the council files, or that's not related to any names on the development itself?
I'll throw to the Director of Planning.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the former Young Shire had a 355 naming recognition committee. On that committee, they recommended a list of and had a naming register. The names have been approved by council and also generally supported by the Geographical Names Board. So at the time, the applicant chose Crow Road and Lacey Place, which were listed on that particular register.
Thank you for that. On that note, I'll put that report. All those in favour? Against? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Just a time delay. Item 12.14 is the works report. It's there in front of you, council, and the recommendation: receive and note the information provided on works completed and works planned. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor Horton. Thank you. Any questions in regard to the report before I put it? Take that as a no. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. 4:15, I have down as the action summary report. Again, councillors, as a report there, and the recommendation, we note the status of the action plan. Moved by Councillor Horton, seconded by Councillor Walker. Thank you. Questions in regard to that report? Councillor Tuckerman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just inquiring in regards to the Borrower Drought Security Scheme. I believe it was supposed to come to this meeting. I'm just wondering of the status of it. Also, there was a media report by the Mayor saying it's been finalised, yet it hasn't been available to the community.
I'm not too sure about the media report with the Mayor saying anything had been finalised, but I'll take it on. I'll have to chase that up. Okay, I'll pass to the Director. Wants to talk to about the water security, or the General Manager? To the status of it, yep. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at the time of putting the action plan together, it was deemed that we would have the final report to be able to bring the status of the work to this meeting. We had several conversations with the Department of Primary and Industry and Environment, and we have, as of today, received their final comments on the report, and that's why it was not possible to bring it to this meeting. We certainly will be progressing with their final comments now, and we will be bringing it to the March report. Unfortunately, there were some delays over Christmas and whatever, but we have been working very closely with them, and today I got the final recommendation from them as to the way forward.
Thank you for that update, and I get it as the same time as everyone else gets it. Councillor Tuckerman.
I was just wondering why we couldn't see the actual options report prior to the recommendation from the department.
Through Mr. Mayor, we could not release the final report from the independent consultant Cardno because the questions were still outstanding with DPI, as explained by the Director of Infrastructure. We've only received their response in that, so now we'll be able to ask Cardno to release their final report, which we can provide to councillors. We have to take into account their comments.
Thank you for that, staff. And I share your frustration, Councillor Tuckerman. It's been going on for a long, long time, as you're aware, much more aware than I am. But it's been a battle, but we are getting closer to the end. I don't know about finalising and getting any solution, but we are getting closer to receiving an answer, I would hope, from the next level of government. Yes. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, there's an item that says to be advised with regard to Motley Road, Scenic Road. The lineal meters completed and the costings on that. That work certainly for Motley Road was completed many months ago. Surely we know by now what the costing of that was. Scenic Road, I noticed, have started more work on it, but presumably the work that was done back in November and December, we can receive a report by now on the costings for that. Galong Road is, as you're aware, one of my long-term frustrations. There is significant work occurring there now, Mr. Mayor. We are the recipient of grant funding from that work, and I am dubious about the cost of bringing that road up to B double standard for the money that we have allocated. And I have made the point repeatedly, it's a local road and we will not be getting any further funding for its ongoing maintenance. So we are entirely dependent on collection of either Section 94 or VPA money for the ongoing maintenance of that road, or we will have built ourselves a very expensive problem in ongoing years. Surely, before any more work continues, we should be determining the cost of that road, whether the funds are adequate, and negotiating post-haste a VPA with Greymont for the ongoing cost of that road. Can I have that addressed? Can I also ask for the next council meeting that a works in progress report be brought back on what has been spent out of the allocated grant money we have, so that we at least know where we're up to before we have an overrun and have to subject it to a quarterly budget review. I've also asked previously for this sort of report to be brought to Council, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. And yes, you have requested some costings before, and I'll hand over now to the gentleman I believe can answer those questions in regard to the costings of the work done in November. Thank you.
Yes, through the Mayor. We're still waiting on our costings to come through from Moppy Road and Scenic Road. There was a late resale done there before Christmas. There's line marking yet to be done. So those costs are yet to realise and hit our books yet. So once we're in, we're anticipating next meeting to have a report tabled. And I just take on note the GALONG Road for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And just further to Councillor Flannery's comments, the question has been asked a while back now around the costs, to be reassured of the cost and the funding for GALONG Road. And the next meeting, I would like to think that the next meeting we can actually have a look at that, because I'm starting to share Councillor Flannery's frustration about that. And also, as soon as those numbers for the Motley Road come in, it would be appreciated if they could be shared with our councillors, please.
Mr. Mayor, the answer that we just received about Motley Road and Scenic Road actually is a case in point with regard to GALONG Road. So the work on Motley Road and Scenic Road was completed 3 months ago, and we aren't able to bring a report to council on what it cost. So how on earth are we going to know whether we overrun our budget for GALONG Road when we can't even bring a costing to a very basic reseal on 2 other roads?
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. I take your point on board, but we're not here to, unfortunately, and it's not our role to dispute or discuss answers. Councillor Flannery, it's not up to us to question.
Point of order, actually, Mr. Mayor. It's our role to make sure we do not overspend grant funds.
I understand that, but it's not our role to question answers when they're given by staff. Staff give their answers in all good conscience, and we have to accept those answers as they come. Councillor, I don't want to have a point of order, but I will. So we'll just move on, please, with this. If there's any other fresh questions in regard to the report, I'll take them. If not, I will put the report. Thank you. I'll let it move in a second. I'll put the report. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Flannery is against the report. Thank you, councillors. It's moved and passed. Item 12.16. Media releases and Office of Local Government circulars. It's there, councillors, and the recommendations there. Move, Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor Wallace. Thank you. Any questions? All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 12.17. Committee reports requiring no action. Again, councillors, it's the reports there and the recommendations there. Have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Walker. Thank you. Questions in regard to any of those? No. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Now I come to the late item. Is that correct? 12.18, the late report. Councillors, 12.18, the preparation of the 2019-20 financial statements, which everyone would have, and the recommendation is there. So to start, to have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Horton has moved. Councillor Armstrong has seconded. Happy to take questions, councillors, if we have some in regards to this matter. Councillor Armstrong.
A couple of questions. Obviously, the result is disappointing, to say the least, but it's history now. We can't change that. I do note that depreciation represents a very significant component of the general fund operating costs, and also the consolidated costs as well. Given that it's a non-cash operating cost, is there an opportunity for council to review its annual depreciation? It seems to be somewhere in the order of 34% of general fund operating costs. That just seems to be a lot across the board. If I can just get some background on that, please, whether there's opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the practice of Hilltops has been for independent valuations regarding the life of the assets. That drives the depreciation rate. So in that way, we have accepted that. I do take your point on notice. It is a non-cash item. It does affect the bottom line. We can review each class of assets. You can't revalue or change depreciation rates for one aspect of a class. So you can't just do one section of roads. You need to do all of roads. The revaluation of the roads for the purposes of the 1920s accounts included a revaluation up of some close to $50 million. So that's the aspect that we're dealing with in that regard.
Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I support Councillor Armstrong, and I've been of the firm opinion that 30 and up to 50% of our capital expenditure comes from grants from.
We're losing your volume, Councillor.
I support Councillor Armstrong. I've been of the firm opinion for a while that a significant amount of our grant money that goes, amount of the money that goes into capital works comes from grants. And I don't see why our bottom line should be that portion of depreciation that comes from grants for capital works should go into our bottom line to make us worse. We are always going to be dependent on federal and state government grants for major capital works, but it affects our bottom line when they pay for things like bridges and the like.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, if we own the asset, notwithstanding whether we loan fund for it, we receive a grant for it, the depreciation becomes ours. We must maintain that asset. So one of the considerations that needs to be made when we're going for grants, we need to look at whole of life costs on how the ongoing maintenance and how the depreciation does affect our bottom line. But your point is noted, Councillor Flannery.
Councillor Walker has a question.
In regard to this depreciation, and it's always seems to be a variant and a point for discussion every year, but is this extra large depreciation a one-off that won't, so it might go back to normal next year, or how is it determined?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, depreciation is usually on a straight line basis. So if the beginning of the life of an asset is 20 years, the depreciation is 5%. So if we get more assets, that depreciation just goes up. So it's rare for the depreciation expense to go down for the very on the very fact that more assets mean more depreciation. And given it's usually straight line depreciation for councils, if you had a diminishing value depreciation rate, it would diminish. The rate may go down and you may see a lesser effect, but that's not the case or practice in local government.
Thank you for that, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Armstrong.
Just another couple of questions, just in regard to the revaluation reserve of in excess of $70 million. When we go to renew the bridges, hopefully we are the recipients of that $10 million. But if we go to renew our bridges, presumably we're going to have to impair the current bridges because they will have had some book value. I guess my concern is that the revaluation reserve is going to be able to support the impairment that is likely to be pushed that way. Given that our operating statement will also reflect that, it's certainly not going to improve anything. But can I just get some comment on that? And also an observation in regards to the water fund performance. I note that there's some 20.44% less income, but only 2.74% less water. Now, presumably that's in receivables. Looking at the report tonight, but If it's not, can someone please explain why we would have a profit to cost ratio exceeding 36:1 on water?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll answer the first question in relation to revaluation, and I'll pass to the CFO on the water fund performance as outlined. In relation to revaluation reserve, that's built up over years. So the asset cost you $100, it's been revalued up to $200. The $100 goes into the revaluation reserve and it's depreciated. So when an asset is demolished, all of those accounting journal entries to represent what should be the value of the asset, all of those are reversed out. So the only effect on the bottom line ultimately should be through the actual loss. That's the mechanics of it, but I can't talk on individual cases per se, but that's the mechanics as I understand the revaluation reserve. So yes, the revaluation will fund some of it through the equity component reversed against taking out any accumulated depreciation and rolling out the base value of the asset in its revalued amount. Now I'll just pass to Ms. Taylor, our CFO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the water fund dropped by approximately 1.5 million in terms of water usage through the year. We've been able to track this back and attribute it to the water restrictions during Q3 and Q4 that were at the highest level. During that period, we saw the water usage in Harden drop to approximately 50% of its prior year's usage, and that both Young and Borowa only consumed 2/3 of their usual water during those two periods as well.
Just, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I thank the CFO for that, but I guess it doesn't explain how we've only purchased 2.74% less water than we did the previous year, but we've generated $1.4 million in round figures less income. I guess what I'm asking is whether they're accounts that haven't been paid, in which case we'd be showing them as receivables. Is that the case?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, look, through the debtors report that was discussed earlier, there is a large outstanding water receivable, which may explain some of it, which may not explain all of it. However, I will take that on notice to reconcile that to a more precise answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, do you have any more questions in regard to that item? Looks like a no, so I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. It's unanimous. Thank you for that. That takes me to questions with notice. Now, I'll just take some advice, councillors, for 1 second. Thank you, councillors. I was just getting clarification. There was actually no recommendation on the next item, which is questions with notice. The recommendation will be that council receive and note the questions and answers put forward. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? Move, Councillor Walker. Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. It's unanimous. Move on to the next one, which is another question with notice provided by the Mayor. And this question comes from being asked numerous times by community members in the relevant areas in regard to wind farms. And it's been ongoing for a long time. And I thought I had answered and responded to those people who contacted me, but I just wanted to bring it to staff to get the answer officially from staff. And the question is in front of you is it practical to have a no wind farm in Hilltops Council resolution if council was to feel that way was appropriate, and what weight, if any, would it carry given these matters are dealt with by the state? Now, the response from the Director of Planning is there, and I'm going to ask the Acting Director to speak to that, please. Put you on the spot right now.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as stated in my response, majority of the wind farms or all the wind farms are state significant development applications. This is triggered by usually the capital value of these wind farms being over $30 million most often. And that's with any development that has a capital value over 30 million, so it becomes a state significant development application. Through that process, then council is referred to as an agency for commentary. Again, we may provide commentary based on the assessment criteria and the documentation in front of us. We as staff don't take on the political views or the representations or opinions of the community, but we do consult with the community where if they raise matters such as the Rye Park one, there were community members that raised items in relation to road access, very valued points, and we reiterated those comments back to the community or back to the state agency to address these concerns within the applications themselves. So we do support the community in one way when there is an ability to, but again, it must be linked to an assessment criteria.
Thank you for that, and that answers the concerns I have, and hopefully it answers the question to the community that we're asking me of it. So thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is 14.1, the motions that were put forward by Councillor STADTMILLER. Given Councillor STADTMILLER's not here tonight to move his notice of motion, unless someone else would like to move them for him. So Councillor Walker said he would move them.
I'll move it for a point of discussion, Mr. Mayor.
We'll just have to see if we get a seconder in consideration of that before we do anything. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Manchester seconded. Thank you, Councillor Manchester. So we've got a mover and a seconder for the motions put forward by Councillor STADTMILLER. They've all been put to me in one bundle, councillors. So I would ask councillors who are in favour of the recommendation to show their hands now. Those against? The recommendation and motion is lost. Thank you, councillors. Item number 15 is confidential matters. So I would ask for someone to, Councillor Flannery, thank you very much, seconded by Councillor Horton, to move into closed council. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Unanimous. We'll move into thank you, Deirdre. Councillors, we're now back on live stream with our council meeting. Councillors, the recommendation comes to you now is that council adopts the recommendations as stated in closed council. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved, Councillor Walker, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Horton, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. It's unanimous. And that brings us to the close of business, councillors. Thank you all for your attendance and your participation. Keep safe, everyone, and we'll catch up all shortly. Just before we go.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, just before we go, work